pick. I would if I were them. So the last 10 number 1 overall pick quarterbacks, there are 4 guys that were unanimously considered they are going number 1. They are a blue chip prospect. And to varying degrees, all 4 of those guys, the least successful of them is the Prince. It's the Prince, Joe Burrow, Caleb, and Andrew Luck of the last 10 number 1 picks. Those were the 4 guys there was no debate. The other 6 guys who went number 1, there was, kind of differing thoughts on Jameis, Jared Goff, Baker, Kyler, Bryce, and Cam Ward. And none of those guys, except for Jameis, do we know what the full story of their career is? Jared Goff, most of the book is in, and it's positive, but mostly positive for his second team. And even though there's no debate about Mendoza being the top quarterback, I think that's more about the quarterbacks in the draft than it is about his profile. If it's not an Andrew Luck, Joe Burrow, Caleb Williams, with respect, Trevor Lawrence draft, I'm listening. And if you're the Raiders, I would call the Jets and say, hey, would you give me 2, 16, and next year's 1? That's about the going rate. I would call Arizona and say, would you give me number 3 and 2 future 1s? I would call Cleveland and say, would you give me 6, 24, 39, and 1. That's like the historical, what it would take to move up from those spots. And then I would tease it out, and I'd game it out, and I'd think about the players I could add, how close I am to competing, my chance of getting a quarterback in next year's class. Now, if I think this guy is Joe Burrow or Andrew Luck or one of those guys, then no trade is worth it. I like Mendoza. I don't love Mendoza. And because to me, he's more in the Jared Goff mold as far of prospect, not necessarily career of prospect. So I would listen. I would listen in those cases.
So I think you have to listen, but absolutely not trade. Take your pick. Like when you hired Clint Kubiak and you started to make moves, you already have been backtracked or unplugged, if you will, on what your plans were, knowing that Max Crosby, what you were going to get for that trade and what you were going to have. You were planning to move forward with those draft picks. Now you have Max Crosby still on your roster. No harm, no foul, whatever the case may be. But you acquired an offensive lineman in Linderbaum to secure your offensive line at the center position to alleviate the pressure of a young quarterback coming in immediately and having to call protection. So, okay, we got that. Then you bring in a guy like Jalen Naylor, a solid number 2 guy, and you have Brock Bowers. Yeah. You already have Ashton Genty. You need to bolster up your offensive line and get weapons around this quarterback. You're going to go get Mendoza. The fact that you go and get Kirk Cousins, nobody believes that that's their play.
No, everybody believes they're taking Mendoza.
Yes, and the reason why you get a guy like Kirk Cousins is so that he has somebody who has performed, who has played in this league, who understands what it looks like and what this plan that Clint Kubiak is going to have needs to look like. Now, you and Mendoza, being the you, are going to unlock it to its fullest potential, not Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I lean toward great. Obviously, it depends on how much they love the quarterback. But they clearly think he can be a franchise guy. And from what you see, the smarts, the size, the good enough athleticism, the intelligence, leadership. College, you look like a big game player. Like, he seems to have the intangibles. I don't think he'll ever be like a top 4 or 5 guy. Like we talk about Lamar, Mahomes, those guys. I don't think he'll ever be that. But what if and I'm not saying this because he's on the team, what if he's Kirk Cousins who can play in big games?
All right, I really want to just go off for this segment because, first of all, it's amusing that they're bringing up the what if he's Kirk Cousins angle, which is an argument I've been making for weeks and weeks now, talking about how that's considered a massive success. And now we're throwing in names like Jameis Winston and Kyler Murray, and suddenly it's like, oh my God, Baker Mayfield, as if those comparisons mean absolutely nothing. I hate when we just do these broad, generalized exercises where we take the last 5 first-round picks and the number 1 overall selection and line them up side by side. It has so little relevance to anything happening in the present moment. Jameis Winston? There's no comparison between who Mendoza is as a quarterback and Jameis Winston, especially when you factor in the mental makeup, the head on their shoulders. There's simply no comparison. Same thing. Kyler Murray is about 5'0", okay? So again, no comparison. And going to the Arizona Cardinals or the Cleveland Browns or the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Carolina Panthers and so on, it's just absurd at this point. It genuinely makes no sense. If the Raiders were still the old Raiders, where I'm just kind of like, I don't know what's happening over there. I don't know who their coach is. What are they doing? What's their plan? And it's just one giant disaster. Then sure, I could lump them into the Cleveland Browns category and all that. But they're changing. They've already changed. Ged. This is more like Trevor Lawrence getting drafted to the Jaguars with Liam Cohen already installed as head coach. That's much closer to this situation than anything else. And so, they say, well, he could be a Jared Goff type of prospect. If you can land a Jared Goff, if you can land a Kirk Cousins, those are home runs in the NFL. Legitimate home runs. And even Bruce saying this, which I disagree with, but even just stating, well, we know we'll never be top 4. We're never going to have Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. Those are potentially three of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play this game. They have all broken records that seem impossible, that seem absurd. Say whatever you want about Josh Allen. He has some of the greatest playoff statistics of all time. Total yards per game, touchdown to interception ratio, passer rating, completion percentage. Same with Mahomes. Lamar with his rushing records. So you're talking about, oh well, maybe he's not a quarterback who will break nearly every single record in existence. And it's like, okay fine, I guess so. And if that's the case, then you consider trading the pick. It's just, we've lost the plot, man. We've completely lost the plot. And yeah, you know what? Kirk Cousins gets drafted by Andy Reid, and he's winning a ton of games, winning some big games. He's winning a lot. He goes to the 49ers or to Shanahan? Yeah, I'm pretty confident that he maybe wins the Super Bowl in 2019, you know? We can sit here and say, oh, what if he's just a Kirk Cousins? But Kirk Cousins is so much better than people genuinely realize, considering he had to bounce around a bit. He was in Washington, and it wasn't until near the end that they finally got something going, the right coach, the right roster. Then he goes to Minnesota. That takes time to actually bring in the talent there and bring in Kevin O'Connell. By that point, he's already older. So now he's in his early 30s, and then he goes to Atlanta, post-Achilles injury. So his career has always had a slightly rougher trajectory in terms of timing. But Jared Goff? Goff got to a Super Bowl with Sean McVay. Goff with Ben Johnson absolutely balled out. He's not the reason they lost in 2023. Jared Goff is not why they lost in 2023. They were absolutely in a position to go to the Super Bowl and win it. Jared Goff is not why they lost in 2023. In 2024, he wasn't perfect, but I'm also not putting that all on his shoulders. That game was a mess from the opening kickoff, and everyone shares the blame. Ben Johnson deserves a lot of criticism for that game too. Tom Brady even called out Ben Johnson during that game. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh well, Jared Goff just can't perform in big games, right? Because that's a nonsense narrative as well. And also, what about a quarterback we know can actually perform in big games, like Jalen Hurts? You don't like Jalen Hurts, right? So when we talk about, oh, can you win the big GA? Me? Can you step up in the playoffs? Well, here's a quarterback who actually does that, Jalen Hurts, and you say he's not good enough and he's a liability. But then you have concrete, indisputable evidence of him genuinely elevating his game in Super Bowls, and yet you still don't want him. So then what quarterback do you actually want? Which quarterback can we agree on and just say, this is a quarterback you can win with? Who is that quarterback then? Is it just Patrick Mahomes? Because you say Josh Allen can't win the big game. Lamar Jackson can't win the big game. So then who is it? It's either Patrick Mahomes or nobody. That's what drives me crazy about these conversations. It drives me insane. And then you say, well, unless it's an Andrew Luck type of prospect, then I would trade the pick. And it's like, okay, sure. Bo Nix was not an Andrew Luck type prospect, yet they got to the AFC Championship game. And honestly, they would have gone to the Super Bowl. Raiders fans, I know you know that. I know you believe in your heart that if Bo Nix had been there, they would have made the Super Bowl. That seems pretty good to me. Sam Darnold, is he Andrew Luck? Is he Patrick Mahomes? He won a Super Bowl. Again, you think Jalen Hurts isn't good? He won a Super Bowl. It's all about how well-run your franchise is. And if you have a well-run franchise, if you have the right coach, the right general manager, and the right ownership, if you bring in someone like a Kirk Cousins or a Jared Goff, you are going to have consistently high levels of success. Will you be able to step up, win, and elevate in the Super Bowl and in the crucial moments? First of all, we've seen Mendoza do exactly that, so that's obvious. But if we're just going to do the general I don't know, Kirk Cousins, Bo Nix, blah blah blah, you just have to wait and see. Because again, look at Lamar Jackson. Look at a lot of these other quarterbacks who haven't necessarily, Peyton Manning, right? So you just have to wait and see. You have to feel it in your gut. What has Dak done? Baker? Go down the list. So if you have the opportunity to draft someone of that level, you take it. You do it. You do it immediately. And you never look back. It's such a no-brainer. And this conversation just keeps getting more and more ridiculous to me. I mean, it really does, especially when you look at who Mendoza is as a leader, all his intangibles, his physicality, his physical traits and everything. It's an absolute no-brainer. If you were talking about one of those in-between prospects where you're kind of like, I don't know, the personality is a little questionable. He's only 6 feet tall, then I could understand hesitation. But that's not who Mendoza is. The guy is 6 feet 5 inches and built like a tank. I'm not going to compare him to someone like 5 feet 10 inches Kyler Murray, who doesn't want to put in the work, doesn't want to watch film, and he's going to the Arizona Cardinals, who are literally consistently voted as one of the worst-run franchises and one of the worst-owned franchises in the NFL. That's according to the NFLPA. Don't get mad at me. Meanwhile, the Las Vegas Raiders have made incredible moves to improve, grow, and evolve. They've had slam dunk after slam dunk after slam dunk, grand slams, hole-in-ones, Yahtzee, checkmate. I'm pulling out every game metaphor I can. So I feel completely comfortable and confident. If you were still a mess of a franchise, if you had no talent, no coach, and you were just hoping, if this were a situation where Ben Johnson says he's going to be a coordinator for another year, and you're thinking, pretty sure after next year he'll be available, so you're just waiting, then I could understand. Maybe trade back, get extra picks, keep building the roster, hire Ben Johnson, and then in the 2027 draft, take your quarterback. Some of that would make sense. A lot of that would make sense. You could make a great argument for that, for sure. Let's do it. In a way, almost what the Cleveland Browns did when they said, we're going to trade back. I don't know if they knew they were going to fire Stefanski, but if they had a feeling like, this is probably Stefanski's last year, we're looking to hire. And again, I'm not saying they've made great moves by any stretch of the imagination, but just kind of like, we're going to kick this can down the road a little bit. But if they were really doing it properly, they would have traded Myles Garrett, gotten and more picks, gotten even more draft capital, gotten even cheaper, then you're flush with young, cheap talent, draft your quarterback, hire your new head coach, and then you're cooking. But they do things in a half-measure way, so you end up a mess. That's not what the Raiders are doing. The Raiders moved on from Max Crosby? No, they didn't. They hired their coach. They're drafting their quarterback. They got their big-time center who's going to make things work. They got the mentor in Kirk Cousins. They're doing all the right things. Obviously, the Max Crosby thing didn't work out, but that wasn't their fault. They're making all the right decisions. And when you're a team making all the right decisions, if your baseline is to draft a Kirk Cousins or a Jared Goff, you will consistently be a great team, consistently competitive year after year after year. As long as you're healthy, as long as you don't have major liabilities like, well, our offensive line is decimated, our defense is a joke. As long as you don't have those glaring weaknesses, which, surprise, surprise, even Joe Burrow struggles to win under those circumstances. So does Patrick Mahomes. So does Josh Allen. So does Lamar Jackson. So if those top 5, top 4 quarterbacks also struggle in those situations, then it doesn't matter. And again, I didn't see Joe Burrow become Superman in the Super Bowl. I haven't seen Lamar Jackson do it either. Heck, I barely even seen Patrick Mahomes do it every time. So we can't even fall back on the "can you step up in the big game" argument, because again, Jalen Hurts is the textbook example of someone who genuinely rises to the occasion in the biggest moments, in the literal Super Bowl, and yet nobody says, "I want Jalen Hurts." They say no. So I'm just kind of like, how do you want to evaluate a quarterback? What type of quarterback do you think you need to win games? Tell me who it is. What's the quarterback you think you need to win games and win a Super Bowl? What is it? Who is it? How do we reach these conclusions in this moment? Trading Mendoza? It's nonsense. Nonsense. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. None. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you all think about the Las Vegas Raiders trading the #1 pick, which means trading Mendoza? Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you as part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.